Wouldn't you know it, the Spurs lost again in the fourth quarter.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey guys, this is Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, and you are listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia. It's morphin' time.
Welcome back to Locked On Spurs on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have you back, and thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts. We're going to be looking at, last night's game versus the Thunder NL. Yes, I think you could just pretty much just look back at any recap we do here at Locked On Spurs and just replay it because it was the fourth quarter. What went right? What went wrong for San Antonio versus the Thunder last night? And then I have to give a little shout out to Kevin Durant here on Locked On Spurs. But before we do that, let's go to bring in our guest. He is Rudy Campos, back once again. He is with Sweep the League. And Rudy, like we said before we hit the record button, should we just replay the last episode we did and just say, hey, just fast forward to the fourth quarter talk?
Yeah, I mean, it's the one quarter that is always getting them. It's the fourth quarter. Needless to say, tonight, it was 3 out of the 4 quarters that got the Spurs, but definitely in the fourth quarter, things got out of hand, and it was just OKC from there.
Exactly. Make sure to follow Rudy on Twitter at Sweep the League. Do it right now. We'll be talking about Sweep the League in just a few seconds. So, you're looking at the game last night, and, we got to address the elephant in the room. This is the team that just cannot play 48 minutes of basketball. Now, credit to the Spurs. They cut that lead down to 3 points in the third period. Really came on strong at half. But when they came down to money time, Spurs couldn't get it done. And look, Shea, obviously, is being Shea. He had 20-plus points for OKC, but he wasn't the Shea Gilgeous-Alexander that we're used to seeing, 30, 40 points a night. So the Spurs had a chance. And then they lose Pokachevsky in the first period. So you add all that together, and the Spurs simply couldn't get it done. I mean, what is it going to take, Rudy? Is this where just patience needs to be exercised for this young Spurs team?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I'm saying this in a very calming, positive way, but these are the expectations that I know I had going into this Spurs season. It was going to be a struggle. It wasn't going to be a great season. Everybody's saying they have a chance at the play-in game. They have a chance at this. They can do this. I mean, I was warning a lot of people, you got to lower your expectations. There's no stars on this team. I mean, OKC is one of the bottom feeders in the league, but they have a star in Gilgeous-Alexander. So, I mean, the Spurs don't have that kind of talent on their team. They're going to be a lot of nights like this. I keep saying that over and over again. But the struggles in each quarter, they legitimately have to win. Basically, the way it's going to come down to is they've got to win at least 2 quarters. One of those quarters needs to be a blowout quarter. They've got to really put it in, but it's got to come in the second half. And it's, you know what? Yeah. If you concentrate on one quarter, it's got to be that fourth quarter. I don't remember a game where I've seen them win a fourth quarter lately. In fact, I don't even know how many fourth quarters they won all year.
Yeah. You look overall, periods 1 through 3, the Spurs were in it for the most part. Now, granted, the Thunder did have a 20-point lead, but that wasn't built until the final frame, and the Spurs were in it. They even held a lead over the Thunder at 4 points early in the game. So, and you're looking at this team, they came out ready to go. They didn't get shaken when the Thunder came out on a 5-0 run. Spurs made things interesting. And I just think that, you look at this game and it just summarizes this team so far at this point of the season. They're a good team, but they still have some ways to go. When the game was in the fourth quarter and the Spurs were kind of in it still, but down by 11, 10, 12 points around there, I kept saying to myself, hey, if they're still behind by double figures with about 3 minutes and change left, it's a game. It's done because this team cannot come back from double figure deficits when they're heading to the final frame. Rudy, do you think maybe the fourth period lineup should be shaken up a bit, maybe play a little bit more veterans than some of the young guys, or you want to get those young guys that experience to learn how to come back from deficit.
It's a double-edged sword, man, because if you go with veterans in that fourth quarter, yeah, you can think, well, the veterans have the understanding of how they're going to be able to play in the fourth. They know what it takes to win. They've been there at that time. But then you're like, well, you're still trying to get the rookies minutes, get the young guys minutes. So it's a double-edged sword. If it's me and I'm on the coaching staff, I'm actually looking to win every single game. So I would go with the best 5 available, whether it is a rookie, whether it is a 1-year player, or a 8-9-year veteran. Whoever's giving me the best opportunity to win the game is the lineup that you should go with. Tonight, honestly, I mean, their starting 5 was probably their best lineup. So it's kind of a hit or miss on that fourth quarter, man. I don't know if there's really a way of figuring out that fourth quarter. Especially, like I said, they're missing the one key piece, and that one key piece is that go-to guy in the fourth quarter that they've had in past years where they've been successful.
Yeah, exactly. The Spurs don't have that guy, and it needs to be by committee. Once again, the Spurs lose to the Thunder last night, 130 to 114. Devin Vassell led the way with 20 points, and we're going to do that right now. We're going to dive into the box score. What does Rudy like when he looks at the numbers? What doesn't he like? Are there any shining light? Is there any shining light on this loss for your San Antonio Spurs, who now dropped to 11-22 on the season, 5-10 away from the AT&T, and they'll next face the New York Knicks in San Antonio. Once again, we're joined by Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. Hey, before we continue chatting about your silver and black, I want to talk to you about Prize Picks. Look, Prize Picks is a daily fantasy app you need to get right now. How does it work? You pick 2 to 6 players, and if they go on to score more or less in their Prize Pick projection, you go up to 25 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport you want. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college football, disc golf. Yes, you heard me right. Disc golf, Eurobasket, cricket, MMA, and much, much more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Picks app right now. Go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can get themselves a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. Basically, you deposit $100, Prize Picks gives you $100. You deposit $50, Prize Picks gives you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. We're back with Rudy Campos right here on Locked On Spurs. Follow him on Twitter at Sweep the League. And yeah, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Check out Locked On Sports today. The biggest stories around sports world in 20 minutes or less. Available on YouTube and wherever you get podcasts. So let's go and look at the numbers from last night. Rudy, and right off the bat, you got to love the line from Jeremy Sohan. What did you like from him?
You saw his scoring tonight. He was 7 of 16 from the field. Jacked up 2 3-pointers, but he didn't make either one of them. Scored 16 on the night, 2 blocks, 9 boards, 4 assists, 1 steal. Basically, you know what? Again, the guy keeps bringing up his name, but he had a Trey Jones type of night. He had a stat in every single statistical category, which is what you want to see. Really good night for him. Really played aggressive. Was playing really smart basketball. He did have 3 turnovers, which kind of hurt him. But when you look at overall, those 3 turnovers weren't really as bad. I mean, he made up for it in other parts of his game. But overall, good night for Sohan. You'd like to see more of it. That way you don't get the Rodman comparisons that you see a lot going on. He's a way different player compared to Dennis Rodman. He's actually got an offensive side to him. But, I'm just glad to see him having another decent game for the Spurs. It just has to be – the key word has to be consistency. The more consistent he gets, the more his stats are going to improve, the better player he becomes.
Stands out for me the free throw attempts. The Spurs went to the free throw line 14 times, while the Thunder went to the line 31 times. A huge lopsided in OKC's favor. Shows me the aggression was on OKC's side, getting to the rim, creating fouls on the perimeter, doing what they got to do to put the Spurs away. The Spurs simply couldn't do that. One other thing, too, is the Spurs kept things sort of close. You look at the rebounding, 45 to 41, Thunder, but not that big of a gap there. Assists, 25 to 20. again, not a big of a gap, but you start piling things up together and you start seeing why the Spurs lost. Fast break points. Even that was close, 13-12, Thunder favor. Spurs actually won the Battle of the Paint, 64-62, but those mistakes, 21 fouls to Thunder's 18. They got to clean up the game better, and they got to play perfect basketball. What about Devin Vassell? Really trying his best to keep the team in things. 20 points, as mentioned in segment 1, 8 for 15 for the field. Your thoughts on Vassell?
Yeah, Vassell's the key word again is consistency. I mean, we've seen him have some games where he's scoring 20 points a game. He's shooting the ball really well. Shot over 50% tonight from the field. And it's stuff that you want to see, Devin, when you're hoping that he improves, throughout the year. But it's the inconsistent part that's really sad about Devin. In order to be that leader, to be the next guy up, and to be the man in San Antonio, you've got to be more consistent. So I'm glad that we saw Devin kind of break out of a shell. Hopefully that we'll see a couple of more games where he's getting 20, 25 the next few games. I think he's just got to continue to play, man. And that's what Pop's going to tell him in the locker room. He tells all the guys, you just got to continue to play. Don't worry about what's going on. You got to continue to attack the basket. You got to continue to shoot the ball. So glad to see you put up 20 tonight. But again, I want to see more consistency before we give him any more praise.
Well, the Spurs starter, every single one of them scored in double figures. Every single one. But every single one was also minus in the plus minus column. Now, you're big on the plus minus column. Why is that horrible, Rudy?
For me, on a plus minus, it shows the impact that a player has on the game. And, what I really like to see is, the plus minus is huge. Now, we're looking at a player that we've been really giddy on, and that's Trey Jones. His plus minus tonight was minus 14, which you don't normally see. A lot of his games, he's around +3, +7. If he's on the minus, he's about -2. What really got him tonight was the turnovers. I mean, it's only 2 turnovers, but definitely were the fouls. Well, he racked up some fouls, and I understand guarding Gilchrist Alexander is gonna be a tough assignment. So up on the turnovers, up on the personal fouls by Trey. I mean, the plus or minus it's gonna tell you relatively how good your team is doing. And when you only have, I think, like 2 players, maybe 3 players in the plus category, it's going to be a very long night compared to the Thunder, who 4 of the 5 starters were plus.
Yeah, and you look overall, the Thunder, just had that cooking in the right time. They weathered the storm in the third period. The Spurs actually outscored the Thunder in the third, 33-25, and really, I think they were down by 1 or 2 going into the final frame. It was an interesting game, and I thought, okay, Spurs, here we go again. You're going to make things interesting. And then right out the gates of the fourth, a 12-3 run by the Thunder. Spurs called timeout, and that's all she wrote. I mean, again, the Spurs tried to fight back, but just couldn't get over that hump. You look at a game like this, and you don't have to be in that press conference room. And by the way, everybody, Popovich got ejected in the first half. Brett Brown took over. You know what they're going to say? Development. You know what they're going to say? Fourth quarter. You know what they're going to say? Getting better, closing things out. Until they figure that out, that's going to be the theme for this young Spurs team moving forward this season. Once again, Rudy, I look at the box score, and the Spurs hold Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to just 28, right? Rudy, just 28. So
yeah, he only averages 31.
Again, I got. Yeah, exactly. 20, but that was enough, and that just shows how much a team with an all-star can do damage to a Spurs team that is all-starless. And Mike Muscala was leading the Thunder in the first half. Muscala with 19 points versus San Antonio, and that just cannot happen. Overall, if I had to dare you to pick one bright thing about the loss, what would it be?
Oh, man. One bright thing about the loss, I would have to go with the starting 5. I like the way the starting 5 played tonight. All 5 guys in double figures. They all had really good stats. Even though they were all in the plus or minus, they were all minus. I still like what I saw out of them. I mean, it seems like this starting 5 is gelling. You saw Keldon attacking the basket, Sohan doing what he did. Devin was shooting it. Trey was doing his thing. Jakob ended up with 10 and 6 tonight, but still, I like this starting 5 from what I'm seeing. I dare to say that I liked Devin coming off the bench when he was in those few games, I saw a different Spurs team,
Right.
especially with Devin and Doug coming off the bench. So maybe inserting a Romeo Langford or even a Malachi Branham into that starting five, bringing Devin off the bench for a little bit to kind of give him that spark the way we have seen him before, six-man before Manu Ginobili did, just to kind of see what it does. I mean, what do you have to lose? You're not going to make the playoffs or the play-in game this year. I would say kind of switch it up. But for me, tonight the bright spot was the starting five.
Branham came down to earth a little bit. Was playing really well, had a career high in the previous game versus Utah, 20 points, 23 minutes, 2 for 5 shooting from the field, 1 for 2 from the 3 line, 5 points. So, hey, every rookie's going to go through that ups and downs. This is one of the downs for Malachi, but again, bright future ahead for him if he continues on the path that he's showing of late. For me, I got to bring up Jeremy Sohan. Despite not connected on the 3, 0 for 2. He did go for 7 for 16 from the field in 30 minutes, 16 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks, and 5 offensive rebounds. So those second chance opportunities for San Antonio. Really like what we've been seeing out of Sohan. I think that shot is going to come in time, whether it be the one-handed free throw shot or maybe tweaking that 3 shot. I think that'll just need time to work on. But, he ran the point on occasion versus the Thunder. What are your thoughts about Sohan at point guard?
To me, it makes a little bit of sense. I mean, he's not an offensive threat right now. So I think it reminded me, and I remember when he was drafted in one of the draft shows that I was on, I kind of compared him a lot to Boris Diaw, where he can run the point. He can really dictate what he wants the team to do. And I like him being a big, tall player because it'll help him, give him that. And again, I'm not saying he's this guy, but it gives him that Magic Johnson type feel where you have a big man running the point guard. You can kind of dictate where players are going to go. I think he has a really good basketball IQ. Running to the point is really good. That's why I said maybe mixing this starting lineup a little bit, maybe have him run the point, freeing Keldon, freeing Devin, and even freeing Trey. I mean, it might even be beneficial, but a good move. I like to see it. I want to see it a little bit more. Maybe see how he does against some of the better point guards in the league.
Yeah, you like what you see from Sohan moving forward. When we get back, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about some NBA history for Kevin Durant. You're probably thinking, well, why are you bringing up a Nets player? Because he passed Tim Duncan on a particular NBA all-time list. So we're going to give our thoughts on that. What did Kevin Durant have to say about passing Mr. Tim Duncan? Right here on Locked On Spurs with Rudy Campos of Sweep the League. And before we do that, I want to talk to you about betonline.net. It's your number one source for sports betting information, stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football, college bowl season, basketball. They got it all over at betonline.net. You can even find out, yes, I'm going to say this, the chances of James Harden landing in San Antonio. There's actually odds out there. And believe it or not, the Spurs are in the top 10. Go check it out at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those as well. BetOnline has got them all. Always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting information. Head to the website today. Use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. And we are back with Rudy Campos right here on Locked On Spurs. Follow him on Twitter at Sweep the League. Rudy, you dealing with a cold?
I am under the weather, actually. I got a little bit. I got a little under the weather.
You didn't tell me. I just started picking it up right now.
Yeah, this past Saturday before Christmas, I kind of had a little head cold, and I'm still dealing with that head cold right now. So, but hey, there's a bonus to it for all the listeners out there. When I get sick, I sound like that deep voice guy in the boy bands, and they're the ones that always get the women. So I'm kind of glad I'm sounding like this.
Are you coated in Vicks right now?
No, man. It's West Side San Antonio. Vicks is a part of it, and I got the 7-Up on ice right now.
Oh,
so
my God.
The cures are there. I already lit the candle, so we're good for the night.
How did we ever get to that conclusion that Vicks and 7-Up is like a cure-all? I don't even have it. We know it's fake. We know it's a myth, but why do we believe in it?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it's, for grandparents and their parents, and it just goes back to where, you drink 7-Up and it cures everything. Vicks will just make you, heal 100%. I mean, it's like the egg thing. When you're a kid, if they give you Ojo, you put the egg underneath or something.
Yeah.
I've heard of that. So I don't know. I mean, hey, you know what? If it works, try it. If it doesn't, then use natural medicine or whatever you want to use.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, basically there's a Mexican belief that if somebody gives you bad vibes, the evil eye or it's bad mojo, you hover an egg around the head and the body, and if you crack it and if it comes out, what is it, red? Look at that, blood red. Then you got rid of the mojo. So maybe that's what we got to do with you. Can you get somebody to pass an egg around you?
Yeah, I'll have my wife gut the egg and crack it under the bed, and hopefully that takes the bad juju that's on me right now.
See, you get a bonus. You get a cultural lesson right here on Locked On Spurs. Yeah, and an odd one too. Vicks, 7-Up, and an egg. Yeah, that'll do it. All right,
And a candle.
Let's
you
go.
gotta light the candle.
Yeah, and the candle, and the candle. So, follow Rudy on Twitter at Sweep the League. Let him know that you're thinking about him. Send him some positive mojo so he can get better ASAP. And by the way, a clap for you coming on Locked On Spurs despite feeling under the weather. Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate that.
No worries, man. No worries. It's my job.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap up this episode of Locked On Spurs with a bit of Spurs news. Kevin Durant recently surpassed Tim Duncan on the NBA's all-time scoring list for 15th place overall. After the milestone, he did tip his cap towards Duncan, saying that he changed the game. Duncan, that is, changed the game. And that was pretty cool to do that versus TD. And I looked at some numbers. Really, head-to-head, back when Durant was with the Thunder, the Spurs and Thunder, Duncan, Durant, met 44 times. And guess what? Head-to-head, each won 22 games. Right?
Really?
Even. Yeah. Wow. Now, how the numbers broke down is in the regular season, I think with TD, he beat in the head-to-head matchup 14 regular season matchups to Durant's 12. But in the postseason, when the Spurs and Thunder met, it was OKC Durant winning 10, while Duncan's Spurs won 8. So, another reason why I'm bringing this up, because who is up next for Durant to pass? Former Spur Dominique Wilkins on the list.
Man. You're just bringing up names like we always do.
That's got to hurt you, and he's going to pass former Spur for at least a season. Dominique, your thoughts on the milestone?
Congrats to Kevin Durant. I mean, anytime you're passing up a legend, it's a milestone no matter what. I mean, we can sit here and argue for 30, 45 minutes on Locked On Spurs, the bonus edition, and say how scoring these days is completely easy. You can't touch them, or it's a foul, and it's just scoring out of the wazoo. But you know what? For the time that Timmy played, if he was the focal point of those teams, he would be way higher than 15th that he's on the list. I mean, you're talking definitely top 10, maybe even top 5. I mean, there was a time where Duncan was just scoring at will. You can hear a lot of players, Chris Webber, Kevin Garnett, a lot of guys that guarded him, DeMarcus Cousins. There was no way you were stopping Tim Duncan. And the only reason why he was able to be stopped is because he allowed other players. So, Congrats to Kevin Durant. But you know what? Passing Tim Duncan, you know what? It's going to happen. He just was a very selfless player. And congrats. I mean, hope you get all the way to the top, because I really don't want to see LeBron at the top.
Get you, Rudy. Always calling out LeBron. Hey, well, we know you're feeling ill, so we'll try to cut this short. But you got any 50th anniversary, old school, obscure Spurs things to dish out?
I'm paying tribute to the 50th anniversary, and let's go down the coaching staff. And we're going to go with players that became coaches. And maybe not have known. Everybody knows George Karl became a coach, but maybe people may not remember that Doc Rivers was a Spur at one point in his career. Right. We did mention Paul Pressey. He became a head coach there. Johnny Dawkins was a Spur that became a coach in college.
Dawkins.
Yeah, Johnny Dawkins. I mean, if you remember Hornet days, man. Alan Bristow was a former Spur. He was a head coach in the NBA. So lots of guys. Of course, you got the regular guys, Steve Kerr as well. But a lot of coaches coming out of Spurs history. But I got to give a special shout out, man. I keep wanting to bring this guy in. Former Tar Heel great, J.R. Reed. How can we forget J.R. Reed, man?
J.R. Reed. By the way, you mentioned Dawkins. Isn't he a Dookie?
He is a Dookie, which is...
I got you, Rudy. I got you.
That's why I mentioned the Tar Heel, so I had to kind of counteract the Tar Heel, the Dawkins to the J.R. Reed talk.
All right, well, we're done talking here. We got to let Rudy go. You can hear him plowing through that cold he has. But yeah, thanks for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts. Rudy, you got a few seconds to brag about Sweep the League?
Yeah, Sweep the League comes at you every single week. We actually recorded an episode last night, so it should be out by the time you're hearing this. And we're getting ready for the new year. Lots of stuff coming up. I'm not even going to get into what we talked about, but let's just say new YouTube channel, new merchandise store, new website. Everything is getting launched in 2023. We've got massive athletes. When I say massive athletes, we're talking future Hall of Fame athletes coming on the show. So please pay attention to what we're doing and join us on Sweep the League.
Well, there you go. Make sure to follow Rudy on Twitter at Sweep the League. And again, Locked On Spurs available on every podcast platform, including YouTube, Ken's 5+ app, Odyssey app, iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, the list goes on and on. So for Rudy Campos, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.